Some trucks became famous for their power. Others became legends because of their size. But a handful went down in history for a much darker reason: the danger they could create when something went wrong. Can you imagine controlling several tons of steel while knowing that, in a serious crash, there may be almost nothing between you and the impact? On this journey, we are counting down 10 trucks that became feared because of their design, weight, operating environment, cargo, or destructive potential. And as we move up the list, these machines will become larger, heavier, and even more dangerous. Stay with us until the end, because the truck in first place looks ordinary at first glance, but it hides a problem that caught thousands of drivers by surprise. Ford C-Series Cabover. Introduced by Ford in 1957, the C-Series Cabover became known for placing the cab directly above the front axle. This design made the truck shorter, easier to maneuver, and ideal for urban deliveries, municipal work, and fire department service. Throughout its long production run, it was offered with several engines, including inline-6 gasoline engines, gasoline-powered V8s, and diesel options. Power output varied depending on the year and application, and buyers could choose between manual and automatic transmissions. Power was sent to the rear wheels, while heavy-duty leaf springs supported the truck at both ends. It was a simple and durable setup designed to carry weight, survive long workdays, and remain in service for years. Inside, the cab was basic and functional. The driver sat far forward with an excellent view of the road, but also experienced engine noise, chassis vibration, and nearly every bump in the pavement. Its flat front design made it easy to maneuver through narrow streets. It also allowed larger bodies to be installed without making the entire truck excessively long. That practicality made the C-Series popular with delivery fleets, city departments, and fire stations across the country. But the same configuration created a serious safety concern. The cab sat almost directly over the front axle, with very little structure ahead of the driver. In a severe head-on collision, there was no long hood to absorb part of the impact. The driver was positioned extremely close to the front of the truck, showing how a design that was efficient on the job could become unforgiving in a crash. Even with that weakness, the Ford C-Series enjoyed a long career and became a familiar sight in American cities and on local highways. Many examples are still preserved by collectors and former fire departments. But if this Ford already placed its driver too close to danger, the next truck carried the same basic layout onto long-haul routes with heavier loads and far more demanding roads. Kenworth K100. Introduced in the early 1960s by Kenworth, the K100 became one of the most recognizable cabover trucks on American highways. Its tall, flat front design helped carriers maximize legal trailer length, leaving more room for cargo. Over the years, it was offered with several diesel engines, most of them inline-6 units from Cummins, Caterpillar, and Detroit Diesel. Power varied by configuration, but these engines delivered the torque needed to haul heavy freight across long distances. The transmission was usually a multi-speed manual, while the most common drivetrain configuration was 6x4. Depending on the model year and specifications, the suspension could use heavy-duty leaf springs or an air ride system. On the highway, the K100 was impossible to miss. Its towering cab, nearly vertical windshield, and deep diesel exhaust note gave it a commanding presence. Many versions also had sleeper compartments for drivers who spent days or even weeks away from home. But the same design that improved cargo capacity also increased the danger to the occupants. The driver and passenger sat extremely close to the front of the truck, almost directly over the front axle. Older models had no airbags, no modern crumple zones, and none of the additional protection provided by the long hood of a conventional truck. In a serious frontal crash, there was very little space available to absorb energy before it reached the cab. Even so, the Kenworth K100 became an icon. It appeared in movies, truck shows, and highway culture, and well-preserved examples are now highly valued by collectors. and if sitting that close to the front already sounded dangerous, the next truck added another threat: several tons of moving concrete, rotating directly behind the cab. Mack Granite concrete mixer. Introduced by Mack Trucks in the early 2000s, the Granite was developed for demanding construction, mining, and vocational work. Its reinforced chassis and rugged structure made it a popular platform for concrete mixer bodies. Depending on the year and configuration, the Granite can use inline-6 diesel engines such as the Mack MP7 and MP8, with displacements of roughly 11 and 13 liters. Some versions produce more than 500 horsepower, along with the heavy low-end torque needed to move a fully loaded mixer across rough terrain. Transmission choices include manual, automated manual, and fully automatic units. Common drivetrain configurations include 6-AUK4 and 8-AUK4, while the suspension may use reinforced leaf springs or air suspension depending on the application. On the road, the rotating drum, deep engine sound, and sheer weight of the truck create an intimidating sight. Loaded with several tons of wet concrete, the vehicle demands smooth steering and careful speed control. Concrete mixers have a high center of gravity, and the load can shift inside the drum. Entering a curve too quickly, making a sudden evasive maneuver, or driving across a steep slope can cause a violent rollover. The risk becomes even greater around construction sites, uneven shoulders, ramps, and sloped ground. Once the truck begins to tip, the combined mass of the chassis and concrete can make recovery nearly impossible. Despite those risks, the Mack Granite performs an essential job by delivering fresh concrete to buildings, highways, bridges, and major infrastructure projects. Enjoying this countdown of the most dangerous trucks ever built? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next videos. And if several tons of moving concrete can turn a curve into a disaster, the next truck carries a load that can turn an ordinary collision into a fireball. Peterbilt 379 tanker truck. Built by Peterbilt from 1987 through 2007, the 379 became one of the most recognizable trucks on American highways. With its long hood, imposing cab, and heavy hauling capability, it was widely used for long-distance freight, including tanker operations. Over the years, the 379 was offered with several inline-6 diesel engines from Caterpillar, Cummins, and Detroit Diesel. Depending on the configuration, output could exceed 500 horsepower, with enough torque to pull heavy loads across the country. Most examples used multi-speed manual transmissions with highway-oriented gearing. The common drivetrain layout was 6-AUK4, with leaf springs in front and air suspension supporting the rear axles. Visually, the Peterbilt 379 commanded respect. Its long hood, tall exhaust stacks, polished metal, and deep diesel rumble created the classic image of an American highway truck. The 379 itself was not necessarily defective or unsafe by design. The danger increased when it was configured as a tanker, capable of carrying thousands of gallons of fuel, industrial chemicals, or other flammable liquids. In that type of operation, a relatively ordinary crash could quickly become catastrophic. A ruptured tank could cause a major fire, an explosion, soil contamination, or the release of toxic material near homes and highways. The liquid cargo also changed the way the truck handled and stopped. When the tank was not completely full, the load could surge from side to side or front to back, affecting stability during curves, emergency maneuvers, and sudden braking. Even with those risks, the Peterbilt 379 became a highway legend. It remains highly respected by truckers and collectors, and its image still represents power, freedom, and the golden era of long-hood American trucks. But if carrying fuel can turn a crash into a major disaster, the next truck faces a different danger, created by enormous weight, unstable terrain, and cargo that can break loose without warning. Western Star logging truck. Western Star, an American manufacturer known for rugged vocational trucks, has built several models for logging operations. In this configuration, the truck receives a reinforced chassis, heavy-duty axles, and specialized supports for hauling massive logs across narrow, muddy, and steep forest roads. These trucks commonly use inline-six diesel engines supplied by Detroit Diesel, Cummins, or Caterpillar, depending on the year and model. Output can exceed 500 horsepower, with enough torque to start moving under a heavy load and climb difficult grades. The transmission is usually manual or automated, with multiple gears and low ratios for better control at slow speeds. Drivetrain configurations may include 6x4, 6x6, or even heavier specialized layouts, supported by leaf springs or heavy-duty air suspension. On the road, the sight is intimidating. The truck carries stacks of logs that may extend far beyond the cab, while the entire combination rocks and flexes over uneven ground. The greatest danger comes from the cargo itself. Logging trucks carry extremely heavy, long, and difficult to secure logs. Broken chains, sudden load movement, or hard braking can cause the timber to shift with tremendous force. During a head-on collision, logs can be launched into other vehicles or driven forward toward the truck's own cab. When that happens, their weight and shape can make the accident nearly impossible to survive. Despite the risks, these trucks are essential for moving timber out of forests where conventional vehicles could never operate. They work daily in mud, mountains, and remote logging areas. And if a load of logs can become a group of massive projectiles, the next truck takes danger to an entirely different scale by pulling multiple trailers through one of the most isolated regions on Earth. Australian road train, Kenworth C510. The Kenworth C510 was developed for some of the toughest jobs in Australia, where extreme heat, long distances, and isolated highways demand exceptional durability. In road train configuration, it can pull several trailers for hundreds of miles at a time. These trucks commonly use large inline-six diesel engines that can produce more than 600 horsepower, depending on the configuration. Their enormous torque is designed to move combinations weighing well over 100 tons. The transmission is usually manual or automated, with a large number of gears to maintain pulling power on steep grades and difficult terrain. Drivetrain layouts may include 6x4 or 8x6, supported by reinforced suspension systems built for extreme weight and relentless use. Visually, the combination seems endless. The tall cab, heavy-duty hood, and long line of trailers can stretch beyond 165 feet and dominate the surrounding landscape. That incredible length also requires constant planning. A road train needs an enormous distance to stop, uses a huge amount of road while passing, and can be extremely difficult to maneuver on narrow highways. Another danger appears when one trailer begins to sway. That movement can spread through the rest of the combination, reducing stability and making the entire road train difficult to control. Despite those challenges, these trucks are vital for supplying remote communities and transporting livestock, fuel, minerals, equipment, and food through areas where smaller trucks would be inefficient. If controlling more than 100 tons already sounds unbelievable, the next truck proves that danger can also come from heavy weight, a tall center of gravity, and a mechanical failure in crowded traffic. Mitsubishi Fuso Super Great. Introduced in 1996 by Mitsubishi Fuso in Japan, the Super Great was designed for heavy transport, construction, and long-distance operations. With its high cab and adaptable chassis, it became a common sight on highways, at ports, and throughout industrial areas across Asia. Depending on the year and version, it used inline-six diesel engines, along with larger engine configurations in some earlier generations. Certain versions produced more than 500 horsepower and enough torque to move heavy loads. Transmission options included manual, automated, and automatic units. Drivetrain configurations included 4x2, 6x2, 6x4, and 8x4, while the suspension used leaf springs or air suspension depending on the job. On the road, the Super Great stood out because of its wide cab, large windshield, and heavy-duty appearance. It was built for long workdays and extended highway operation. But part of Mitsubishi Fuso's heavy truck history was overshadowed by a major scandal involving defective wheel hubs. Fatigue cracks could develop in the component, and in extreme cases, an entire wheel could separate while the truck was moving. In 2002, a detached wheel from a Mitsubishi Fuso truck struck and killed a pedestrian in Japan. Later investigations uncovered dozens of earlier incidents before the problem was fully acknowledged. A complete heavy truck wheel assembly can weigh several hundred pounds. Once it separates at highway speed, it can cross lanes and strike vehicles or pedestrians with devastating force. The case led to recalls, legal action, and major damage to Mitsubishi Fuso's reputation. It became an example of how a mechanical defect can become even more dangerous when warning signs are not addressed quickly. And if one detached wheel could cause a tragedy, the next truck operates at hundreds of tons, where even a minor mistake can become enormous. Caterpillar 793D. Introduced by Caterpillar in the early 2000s, the 793D was designed for large-scale mining. It operates in open-pit mines, carrying ore and waste material across terrain, where ordinary trucks would have no chance of surviving. The 793D uses an approximately 85-liter V16 diesel engine with 16 cylinders and more than 2,400 horsepower. That power is sent through an automatic transmission engineered to move hundreds of tons at relatively low speeds. The truck uses rear-wheel drive, enormous off-road tires, and high-drop pneumatic suspension that combines oil and compressed gas to absorb impacts. Even when empty, the 793D weighs more than 350,000 pounds. Fully loaded, its operating weight can exceed 800,000 pounds. Standing next to one feels like standing beside a building on wheels. The cab sits several stories above the ground. The tires are taller than many passenger vehicles, and the sound of the V16 engine dominates the entire mine. Its size allows mining companies to move enormous amounts of material in fewer trips. But it also creates massive blind spots where pickup trucks and other light vehicles can disappear completely from the operator's view. In 2013, an operator was killed at an Australian mine when the light vehicle she was driving was struck and crushed by a Caterpillar 793D. The accident demonstrated how the difference in size can turn a positioning mistake into a fatal event. Modern mines rely on radio communication, controlled traffic routes, exclusion zones, and proximity warning systems. Even so, a single lapse in attention near a machine this large can have devastating consequences. The Caterpillar 793D became a symbol of heavy mining, admired for its power and payload capacity, but also respected for the danger it presents to every smaller vehicle around it. And if this giant can crush a pickup truck before the operator even realizes what happened, the next truck responds to fires and emergencies, where every second matters. International 4800 fire truck. The International 4800 was developed in the United States as a rugged truck for utility work, construction, rescue operations, and firefighting. Fire department versions were fitted with water tanks, pumps, hoses, storage compartments, and emergency equipment. Depending on the model year and configuration, it could use inline-six diesel engines tuned for low-speed pulling power. Transmission choices included manual and automatic units, and some versions used four-wheel drive for rural roads and difficult terrain. Its reinforced suspension, high cab, and heavy emergency body gave the truck an imposing presence. But when loaded with water and equipment, it required longer braking distances and careful control through curves. An International 4800 converted into a fire truck was involved in a brutal crash in Montana. While traveling on a highway, a transmission system failure suddenly locked the rear wheels. Unable to control the truck, the driver crossed the center line and struck an SUV head-on. The collision killed the fire chief driving the truck and 5 people inside the other vehicle. Investigators determined that the lockup was connected to transmission components used in these trucks. Those components were later recalled, showing that the crash was not simply the result of driver error. but of a mechanical failure capable of taking control away without warning. When the rear wheels of a heavy truck suddenly lock at highway speed, the vehicle can skid, cross into opposing traffic, or roll within seconds. In that situation, the driver may have almost no time to recover. Built to save lives, this International 4800 became connected to a tragedy that showed how one component failure could turn a rescue vehicle into an uncontrollable threat. And if one sudden defect was enough to cause 6 deaths, the truck in first place was connected to a steering problem that affected more than 100,000 vehicles. Freightliner Cascadia. Introduced in 2007 by Freightliner, the Cascadia was developed for long-distance highway transportation. With its aerodynamic cab, spacious interior, and sleeper configurations, it became one of the most common Class 8 tractors on American highways. Depending on the year and configuration, the Cascadia uses inline-6 diesel engines, such as the Detroit DD13, DD15, and DD16. The most powerful versions can exceed 600 horsepower, with enough torque to pull fully loaded trailers across thousands of miles. Transmission options include manual and automated units with highway-oriented gearing, designed to improve fuel economy at cruising speed. The most common configuration uses a 6x4 drivetrain, front leaf springs, and rear air suspension. On the highway, the Cascadia looks modern and imposing. Its tall cab, large windshield, and steady diesel sound are familiar to drivers who spend days hauling tens of thousands of pounds between cities and states. But some units were included in a major recall involving a possible failure in the steering linkage. A component known as the drag link could separate from the steering arm, causing the driver to lose partial or complete steering control. In a heavy tractor trailer traveling at highway speed and pulling tens of thousands of pounds, that failure could cause a head-on collision, rollover, or multi-vehicle crash. More than 100,000 Freightliner trucks were included in recalls connected to the issue. The Cascadia is not inherently dangerous across every model and configuration, but the case showed how one steering component can compromise the safety of an entire tractor trailer. The greater the speed and weight, the more devastating the consequences can become. That is how one of the most popular and advanced trucks on American highways reached the top of this list. It proves that danger is not always found in the size of a machine. Sometimes, it is hidden inside a single component that can fail at the worst possible moment. Today, we saw trucks considered dangerous for very different reasons. Exposed cabs, unstable cargo, enormous blind spots, mechanical failures, and components capable of taking away control without warning. More than massive machines, they show how weight, speed, and responsibility can turn a small problem into a major tragedy. Now tell us in the comments, which truck surprised you the most? Which one seemed the most dangerous? And how many of these trucks had you already heard about? Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Your support helps this video reach more people and allows us to keep bringing you the stories behind the world's most incredible machines. We will see you in the next video.